Is that okay? So, I'd like to thank the panel. Those were wonderful remarks. Some provocative, some very stimulating for ideas, and I see an enormous number of hands up in the room. Since Julia mentioned Tim, let me give you the mic first, and I'll try to keep circulating the room.
I do have a specific issue which, well, Julia related to some emails which I've been sending to a few people in the UK. It touches also on Isaac's question about how you attract the very best students, or the very best people. And I just want to relate my own experiences since returning back to Oxford, which is that I've been contacted now on more occasions. It must be a statistically significant thing, it's not just random. People who are either finishing PhDs or maybe have done a few years of postdoctoral work in areas of maths and physics that we would traditionally think of as quite different to our own. So guys who are doing PhDs in number theory or algebraic topology, or doing PhDs in quantum gravity or string theory, or working on the LHC in Geneva. And, you know, if we had tried to, we could do all the persuading we would have wanted to at undergraduate level, and we wouldn't have persuaded these people to move into climate science, because their passion was to do number theory or cosmology or something like that. We could show all the societally relevant slides we want to. It wouldn't change an iota. But now they've kind of worked it out of their system, so to speak. They've done a few years, you know, they've got it a little bit out of their system, and they've developed social functions, and now they do want to try to contribute their incredibly, obviously, numerous skills into our field. And I think there is a problem, because we don't have, at least in the UK, and I suspect here too, maybe, we don't have the mechanisms to say, okay, well, we'll fund you for a couple of, you know, maybe just 1 year, I don't know, and retrain you in, or not retrain is not the right word, but give you additional training in our field. Because I think if you want to bring really innovative thinking, new innovative thinking, we do have to take people in who've had an education perhaps outside the traditional weather and climate field. I say this because, I mean, I'm sort of a little bit like one of these people. I did general relativity as a PhD level, and I was fortunate that the Met Office took me on without knowing anything. I didn't even know which way the air went down the low pressure system. If they'd asked me that, you know, I would have said, oh yes, I had a 50% chance of so I really think this is as I say, my experience of having been back in Oxford is there is a really big field out there of people. This is not a trivial issue. I think there is a big field. We somehow need to find the mechanisms to engage these people, because I think that's the way we start thinking out of the box, as it were, and perhaps accelerate the progress we want to see in our field.
Any reaction from anyone on the panel?
Yeah, because
It's another example, I think.
yeah, an example.
Just 1 second. Give Ed a chance.
I completely agree with Tim. There have been mechanisms in the United States in the past. NSF has had postdoctoral fellows specifically for people who were trained in one field and wanted to go into a different field. I'm an example of that. I left physics because I had no choice. I got fired from a large NASA center which did physics. But there are mechanisms, and that is where the talent pool is. I agree entirely with you. Can I go on to address a different question? Nobody's really addressed question 2, which I would rephrase as, how can we ensure that the necessary observing systems are maintained to provide climate quality data? There is general agreement about what climate quality data is. It's embodied in the 10 Commandments of climate observations. There are no climate observing systems which produce climate quality data right now. And I can give you 2 examples. One is that the solar constant which is measured only by NASA. Everybody has been using 1367 for many, many years, and I'm sure all the GCMs that are currently being made still use 1367. But the latest and best measurements, and the one that's most argued for, says 1361. Well, 1 watt per meter squared averaged over the entire Earth is roughly what the radiative imbalance at the top of the atmosphere is. So if a GCM is using 1367, they're doing it for a different planet than Earth. They're doing it for a planet which is slightly closer or farther away than Earth. I believe the problem is mostly institutional, the maintenance of these climate observing systems. In the United States, most of the funding agencies, NSF and various other things, do not maintain long-term measurements. And NOAA has no internal mechanism for maintaining long-term measurements, basically because the culture of the National Weather Service is weather. Given the choice of spending money on long-term measurements of climate quality and predicting tornadoes, they predict tornadoes, and that's what I want a weather service to do. So the only real solution is to have an adequately funded climate service, but since the climate service was based on global warming, and global warming is a no-no in a Republican Congress, that was turned down a while ago. My feeling is in 50 years, if we don't do something, we're going to be in precisely the same situation as we are now, unless we can get our institutional act together and actually maintain observing systems.
Sid, we have a reaction from the panel.
Yeah, I agree completely with Ed. I think it's in part human nature that it's a lot easier to build something than to sustain it. That sort of goes to things beyond just climate. It seems like a reasonable thing, a logical thing to assume that if something is valuable to businesses and saving lives and livelihoods, that governments and the private sector would want to invest in this sort of thing. But we've already seen that that's not happening, even for maintaining the tau array in the tropical Pacific, which is providing critical information on ENSO. So that makes me think that the hope for a sustained, what you're talking about, much higher bar for monitoring the deep ocean circulation, decadal variability, ocean heat content, where's the heat going, is going to be an even harder thing to put over. I mean, I'm asked all the time, well, in the few times when I'm talking to somebody that's maybe congressional or in a funding agency thinking about investing in observations, in those few conversations, every time it comes up the value of observations, how valuable are observations. So I think that those decision makers really do care about what the scientific community values in the observation. So that puts it then on us, every single one. The observational community has a strong voice, but then it seems kind of self-serving. So I think every member of the climate community has a responsibility to make a case for how valuable observations are and maintaining those in a climate sense to the research that we're trying to do for society.
Anybody else on the panel? Yes, go ahead.
I think it's nice to say observing system, but everybody has a personal favorite to put on the observing system. And so I have been thinking about what, and there are studies and reports to say what is the minimum set of observations we must need for the climate observing system, rather than observing, I can't afford to go to the Mayo Clinic and have the whole body checkup every other year. Okay, so there's a multiple levels of records that we keep, and I think it would be useful to argue for the critical or the minimal set that has to be maintained, and then what would be nice to add on. Otherwise, we get lost.
Peter, go ahead.
I have 2 points to make, one to Liz and one to Mike. The first one is that there are lots of things that our field can do, things like the California drought, besides understanding. We can optimize irrigation practices, and we use examples of probabilistic forecasting and some trial optimization for irrigation in South Georgia. It turns out that we can do better and save money, save water using these models. The other point, I think that I think it's a great idea to be able to explain the distant past, and the time epochs, and so on and so on. But I wonder too if we could gain credibility in our models, and also greater understanding, if we could concentrate more on the second best data period in the world, which is say from 1900 to 1980. Most of the IPCC talks about 1965 to the present. But there's very little work on what John Shukla calls the grand ages, 1945 to 1970s flat cooling. And it's put down in the models as because of an increase, a vast increase of aerosols. But that's the strange one, because when you look at the aerosol distribution between the north and southern hemisphere, there was about 3 to 2. Yet the cooling that occurred in that period was greater in the southern hemisphere than the northern hemisphere. So the question I have is, can we test our uncertainties in this? The period from 1920 to 1945 was the Great Warming period. If we take as the trend, it's very much like what's happened to the ice from 1970 to now. Can we explain that with sufficient attribution to either global warming, greenhouse gases, or natural variability? And I think that if we can't explain the last century, it's nice to think about 5,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago, but if we want to develop credibility, and political credibility, we're going to have to explain very carefully what's happened in the most recent past.
So, I'll invite reaction from the panel. Just let me run down. So the names I have right now is Jiayu, and then Eugenia, and then Davino, and then Kevin, and then Shukla, and then Ram. So any other hands at this moment? Okay, Antonio and Angela. Great. So reaction.
Well, we should react to Peter. First of all, I completely agree about the using the 20th century to test models, and I think I was trying to say that, and I also agree that when people focus on, say, 1970 or something to now, it's too short a period to figure out what's actually going on. And of course, it's contaminated by human interference in a way that's pretty telling. But I think that so it is. I would like to see more emphasis on how well the models do in the past, and it might even be worth having some sort of scoring system, imperfect as it would have to be in such a multivariate system, but some sort of scoring system so we were actually prepared to say, your model is no good. Because right now we have a lot of models and a lot of them are not very good. Okay. So I completely agree with that, and I also think that as a matter of establishing credibility, what would help perhaps, although not a lot, would be to focus on predicting the next year, in addition to the weather, all the time periods out to a year and maybe out to a decade. I don't think very few people, I mean maybe people who build dams and things like that, get into time scales of 100 years. But otherwise, if you want to show that you kind of know what you're doing, predicting over some time period of a decade or less is more germane. Okay. Now, on the question about paleoclimate, to me there are a couple of different things that come up. One is that the range of what happened in the 20th century is relatively narrow as we go into a period where we're going to have unprecedented conditions, so we could try a different set of conditions that are much more extreme than anything that happened in the 20th century. By the standards of the last millennium, Krakatoa was a kind of puny volcanic eruption, and there were a bunch of rather large volcanic eruptions, and we could try to understand what happened in response to them, and there's enough data, given how minimally we've looked at this, to make progress, I'd say. The other thing which I was trying to get at is that it used to be that people would worry about global warming and the possibility of some abrupt change and tipping points and all of that. And I never saw exactly what people were getting at in that. It's hard to say. For certain ecosystems, there perhaps are tipping points, but in terms of climate, we're frogs in water that's on the boat going toward the boil. And there's didn't see a tipping point. On the other hand, it concerns me that something as extreme as the changes that we see in the paleoclimate record, the Younger Dryas one is the most spectacular, at least for the last 20,000 years, but there are also things that happened, say, 4,200 years ago that were also relatively abrupt, that brought the collapse of a lot of civilizations, that happened at a time that's not terribly different from now. Okay? And the fact that we don't have an explanation of how these things are possible ought to concern us as we present ourselves as experts on the climate system.
Okay. Jerry, go ahead.
I'm working for the NWS, Office of Science and Technology Integration. So I have a point related for the panel related to the confident skills and actionable skills. So we actually have an internal concern about the week 3, week 4, the forecast. Yesterday we already made an announcement. We are working on towards the week 3, week 4, the forecast. And then issue is how to issue the way to issue the week 3 and 4 forecast. So in the traditional way, we predict the anomaly. The anomaly is relative to climate normal. But in this case, in week 3, week 4 case, since we predict every day, so the climate normal should be checked day by day. So this one, I think, is that meaningful for the user? So this is a concern and also a discussion in the internally. Then if this need to be changed, then this, I think, this is a big issue. Then need scientific support and also the user community support. So I just raise this issue for the panel for your opinion.
Any reactions?
I think I'll say 2 to 4 week timescales are very interesting forecast range when we think about how we would use it and how we would communicate it. And I think it sits exactly between the weather forecasting timescale, where you're trying to talk about the weather on a particular day or the possibility of certain types of weather on a particular day, to the seasonal forecast, where you're trying to talk probably about what the mean flow will look like, and therefore what the statistics of the weather might be like in the coming season. I think the 2 to 4 week timescale is all about, for me anyway, about talking about weather regime change. And that's where the skill lies in things like the MJO. It lies at least in our neck of the woods in Western Europe on things like sudden stratospheric warmings in winter, where you can often get 2 to 3 weeks lead time, which gives you a sense of the probability of a transition to a more easterly types cold weather. I think there's something in the breakdown of the stratospheric polar vortex at the end of winter, which might herald a fine, a dry period at the beginning of summer, possibly the sort of thing we've seen this year. But what we have to think about is that it's actually not about saying what the weather will be like on a particular day, but what the likelihood is of a major shift from one particular weather regime to another. And I think as a community we haven't really thought that through, and how you would therefore construct your ensemble, and how you would verify the usefulness of your ensemble based on the sorts of information that you're going to be able to give a user in that period of 2 to 4 weeks. We've had some success in the past when we've seen indications of things like a sudden stratospheric warming event, of being able to alert, say, the transport sector to the onset of a cold spell of weather in a couple of weeks' time. And then we use that in the context of our shorter range forecasts as you get nearer and nearer as time goes on, to actually increase the confidence in that statement or to back off from it. And I think so that it's going to take us into a lot of work on weather regimes, which actually is really useful not just for that period, but actually I believe for even seasonal climate, where we want to talk about how long, what the population of weather regimes might be like in the future. Again, that's a more statistical approach. The 2 to 4 week timescale is talking about probabilities of weather regime change within a sort of window of a few days within that 2 to 4 weeks, and what the implications might be then for the user who wants to manage their risk. So it's a risk-based approach, absolutely.
So Tim, you have a reaction to that?
I want to add to that also.
Oh, go ahead. Lisa, why don't you go ahead?
So I will say that the global the threats hazard map that the Climate Prediction Center puts out, which is fairly qualitative, but it already gets quite a bit of attention, is a nice starting point for sort of overall product that might come out from NOAA. But there is this sub-seasonal to seasonal task force between the World Weather Research Program and the World Climate Research Program that's looking at this set of hindcasts that they're putting together. I think that ECMWF will soon be providing that to that community. And I'm anticipating a lot of really interesting research that comes out of that on how, to what extent those models in real time can help improve things like this global threats hazard. Additionally, as the community starts working more with specific communities on what questions they have related to that information. So for example, the IRI puts out a set of map rooms that are updated in real time that's been in collaboration, many iterative conversations for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent. And so those are based on long lead weather forecasts, but it's not just putting out a forecast map, an anomaly map. Their questions are, where is the rainfall over the next week going to be unusually heavy? And what is unusually heavy for one part of the world is going to be different from another part of the world. So that helps put it in context. That gives them something that they can look at and they can start to mobilize. There are other ways of framing that they're interested in as well. When the model says this, how often are they wrong by a certain amount? Or where it's likely to be wet, has it been wet there persistently in the future? Because that might indicate other sorts of hazards that they might have to be aware of. So those specific communities that I think will really benefit from this week 3, week 4 will eventually become part of the dialogue once the climate community has a good sense of what they have in their hands.
Yeah, I just had a brilliant idea, and I just thought I might share it with you.
Just like the one
Yeah, I was going to say, if the ensemble spread is large, just don't put out forecasting.
The ensemble spread.
Let's go to Nino.
Well, I think not everybody has luck. So Shukla, so some people like me are not so lucky, and I'm stuck with the weather service, and we have to look into this observational problem. Right? Everybody in this room wants data in many different time scales with different parameters, etc. Then the fundamental question, if you go back, try to understand what are the problems sustaining the low-churn observational system. So go back to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and so on. And what really has been established was what society was really in need at that time. So you need in Europe to make weather forecasts. So they need data this, and then some people in the beginning of last century say, well, you need, it's an initial value problem, so you need to measure things. Only in very few occasions, not in weather prediction, you have motivated governments and institutions to go into decline. One critical case was GARP. Bob White have, Kennedy asked him, I'm going to the United Nations to give a talk, and what you suggest? That Charlie was suggesting, Bob White, talk about GARP. Then you have Figge, and a lot of experiments. But after the experiment ends, who sustained that? So governments and National Science Foundation, in many countries, they really ask the scientists, they do an experiment, the day after, this thing starts declining. That's the major problem. So we have to meditate, in a Shukla sense, what's really behind this, who is really going to sustain. Taking to, except for main parameters, like Ed was saying, solar constant, etc., climate comes really as in the statistics of weather. So weather, really, governments and people see the value of that because they have disasters, etc. Then always you can claim. It's a drought, agriculture is going bad, so I talked to my Minister of Agriculture. We have to sustain this because of agriculture and so on. So the weather is what really institution governments see more daily. And then we have to be clever enough to pick back on those weather kind of observation system to sustain the climate as a statistic of that. So if you go and say, well, I have to measure something that 100 years from now will be very useful, it's very hard to convince people to do that, except for those high energy physics, which maybe they live in another planet, then they can suggest government to put money to that. And in one time, so TOGA was, after really was established that you need to measure ozone in the tropical equatorial Pacific, after Mark Kane and others done research on this thing. And then the TOGA tower was established, and the Pirata was done in the Atlantic, something in the Pacific. But even nowadays, who's going to sustain those very expensive observation systems? When you go to satellite, they say, well, 70% of the planet is ocean. You have to look into those areas. And the CMWF showed that was important. So us here that need data for climate studies, many other studies, we have to understand what society pays for that, and why they pay. And we have to be clever enough to take those into account and somehow motivate. It's very costly. I live through this problem every single day in a small country like Brazil. It's not so simple. Carlos Lobby has a problem in the Amazon, and established a large database there. But after the experiment ends, it's hard to maintain. So Carlos knows about that. He has been expanding a system for disasters in Brazil. So the day after, we convince people to put money, who's going to sustain those radars and so on and so forth. So we, as a scientific community, I still think I have a foot to that, but have to understand the other side, who pays the bill, is very costly. A single radio song cost me $200. I have to launch in every station, at least 2 a day. You compute that in 365, etc. It's very costly. Satellites are very expensive, and so on and so forth. So, I don't know. So, everybody loves the data, but then we have to understand the other side of the coin and work to that in a smart way that this thing can be sustained. But probably understanding the value of what people see every day, that you can pick back your longer-term system to evolve. Of course, measuring things like greenhouse gases and aerosols, etc. It's not too much in the daily weather, but you can pick back on those systems. Maybe that could be a way to the future. Thank you.
Well, those panel discussions were great. I especially enjoyed Inés. But I am hard of hearing, so I couldn't understand everything that that side said. So I'm kind of nervous because I'm going to talk about, I would like to mention the elephant in the room for one more time. We are doing IPCC models, models for IPCC experiments on scenarios that are created by paths that are created, assuming, for example, a population growth which is totally out of a hat. And we are modeling our future based on a model which does not include the interactions between the human system and the natural system, and the human system is totally dominating the natural system, and we are running out of ecological services from nature and all sorts of doom and gloom, as I heard George said. And to repeat, it's like doing forecasting of El Niño using a very sophisticated atmospheric model and then getting the sea surface temperatures from the United Nations, estimated exogenously and without being coupled. And it's just a bad way to pose the model, and we are staking our future on that. So what I would like to ask is, how can we break the taboo of talking about population and modeling population and including modeling of family planning, for example, and policies that have been very successful, and deal with this forcing term that totally dominates everything else, natural variability and everything else. So I would like to ask what to do to break the taboo, that there is about talking about population. Sorry for messing up.
So, and reaction. Anyone from the panel? Julia.
Well, just very quickly, I don't think there's a taboo. When I talk about climate change, I often use a quote from the former government chief scientist in the UK, Sir John Beddington, who talks about a perfect storm of population growth, urbanisation, climate change, limited natural resources. And I always argue that actually when we talk about climate change, we have to talk about it in the context of those other pressures on society and the environment in the coming decades. The question of how you incorporate human behaviour and so forth into our Earth system models, if you like, and turn them into true integrated assessment models, of course, is a grand challenge. And I think lots of us recognise that. But the fact of the matter is, from the perspective of our science, is that if we can't know where the fresh water goes and know where the heat goes, should we be adding in human beings into the mix at this stage? So it's a question of priorities. But certainly, I think many of us who talk at fairly high levels in government and to the public on these issues do bring these other dimensions into the argument. And he said very powerfully, how can we feed 9 billion people? He said very powerfully, how can we feed 9 billion people, take them out of poverty, do all that and deal with climate change? I think that we need to say that strongly all the time. But actually, let's be careful we don't get ourselves away from the key issues, which is still, for me, where does all the fresh water go? Where does all the heat go in the climate system? Because it's really important that we answer those, because those, particularly water, will be one of the great societal drivers.
Yeah, we'd like to.
Pretty close to the.
Yeah, we would like to reduce population growth, and we know exactly what needs to be done. We have to eliminate poverty. And global warming, the way out of poverty is education. It's happening in India, it's happening in China, it's not happening in Africa. How do you promote education? We have the perfect vehicle, planet Earth. Right? Everybody is an environmentalist, everybody loves nature. We can use it as a vehicle to educate people. So the answer to this elephant in the room is alleviation of poverty.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I want to comment on the observing aspects, but just a quick comment on what Eugenia has raised. You know, internationally, there is this new project called Future Earth, which is a follow-on to IGBP and other aspects that do deal with aspects of human dimensions. I think it's struggling, but it's oriented very much towards sustainability, and it has a lot of aspects that deal with people aspects. What I wanted to comment on was to follow up on the earlier comments that I thought were quite good from Ed Sarachek and from Lisa, dealing with observations. And this is really wearing my former hat as the chair of WOAP, which is the WCRP Observations and Assimilation Panel for 6 years, where we emphasized the systems aspect of it. You know, the comments here were very much oriented towards individual observations, but without adequate emphasis on the processing system to convert those observations into products and information. And from a climate standpoint, the need for climate quality, and then the reprocessing of the data and the reanalysis, which is one of the big jumps forward that this community has made, are very much a part of that system. And so we need an end-to-end system which generates not only the observations, but the transition of those into information. And a part of that is also the assessments, and then the predictions and the projections, because those are a natural follow-through. And so you end up with an end-to-end system which is of tremendous value to society. I clearly was not the right person to lead this effort. I needed a Shukla to transition this into an institution that would really make it happen. I mean, there were a number of things that have happened. You know, IPCC has gone along dealing with assessments, one aspect of it. I think what they're doing is now obsolete, but they're going to continue regardless. Unfortunately, they ought to be part of this end-to-end system. And we've got this thing called GEO and GEOS, the Global Earth Observing System of Systems, which has been a real flop and a disappointment, I think, from my standpoint, but which had the potential to pull all of these individual systems together into an end-to-end system. And so, you know, maybe the framework is there to some extent, but the funding has not been there. The U.S. support has not been there for that adequately. And so those are the things that I think are needed, and we could surely do a lot better.
Shukla is next. Oh. Great, thanks.
Do I need your permission to stand there? Or can I? This is Super Symposium, right? I really want to look at the people.
Oh, please, go ahead.
And I took your recommendation very strongly. I took notes.
Okay, good.
My comment is really inspired by two comments I heard. Randall's comment was, when I was asked a question, life is too short. Right, David? I'm putting it correctly? Yeah, there's so many things. And Isaac's comment was, I just don't have enough patience to wait for all the problems to be fixed. I want to do something with the model. Am I quoting it correctly, Isaac? Okay. So these two comments actually just brought back to me the memory of one colleagues in which you and Tim and several other people have been involved with. And it reminds me that maybe, just like Antonio and Sarachek and Kevin said, observational problem is an institutional problem. Is it possible that the modeling problem is also an institutional problem? Is it possible? That's why I'm saying that, is it possible if we think that the ability to predict the welfare of society for the next 30, 50, 100 years, the ability to see the habitability of the planet for many years, is going to be, models are going to play a big role, then we need to think about the kind of institutional arrangements where it doesn't depend upon the lifespan of the scientist. It doesn't depend upon the what scientists want to publish. So I mean, I'm thinking of an idealized institution. Maybe it will never happen. Maybe institutions always will depend upon the scientists sort of. I mean, right now we're in such a bad situation. It depends upon the tenure clock. It depends upon the funding cycle, 5 years, 3 years. Some institutions have longer funding and so on. So what has come out? So just keep that in mind. Mark Kane and Philander both said that models have huge errors. They cannot even simulate stable cycle. And we all agree with it, I think. Kurtman gave us a rosy picture, but then to remove the bias from those models. That's why they're not looking as bad as they really are. And I tell you, and I'm not criticizing you, I did bias correction 30 years ago. Because if I did, NASA will not let me in their room when I make a proposal for studying predictability. But that was 30 years ago. I think the bias corrections should be not allowed anymore. I think we should see how bad the models are, then we'll go and do that. But the question is, how do we do that? I think that it's a challenge. Lisa said people don't collaborate. Countries, you said countries don't collaborate. Have you tried the US agencies recently? Okay. So there is actually a problem of collaboration, and those are the things that we really we address to be able to act, and we did. So we really have a challenge how to create institutions. And George, you made an example of weather prediction. So let me just give you my quick summary of weather prediction. We are very lucky. We are very lucky that the atmospheric spectra is red. Republicans don't like it, but so what? It doesn't matter. We are in a K-3 energy regime for the last 50 years. All the success of weather prediction is based on the basic accuracy of the potential density dynamics. We are just able to get cyclones to move, we are able to get things to sort of propagate at the right speed and so on, because we are able to do better and better job with how to treat the potential density dynamics. But now we have to go into the convection regime. And that's why the talk by Randall and all the things we heard is so inspiring. We really have to go to that level. How do we go there? And we're just now a few dedicated souls, like Randall and several other, we're going to large model, we're doing it. We need a huge expansion of that effort. You take any issue of nature, take an issue of science, physics today, what do you find? Almost every paper, that's most of them anyway, at least those I understand, those I don't understand, they are based on how accurate measurement they can make. They can do the DNA, they can measure the particles, they can do the galaxies, they can do. We are very proud. From 500 kilometers now we have gone to 100 kilometers. And my point is that we really have to put that global effort. And I know it is beyond one institution, and I know it is beyond one research group and so on. So that is really the challenge for us. How do we persuade our policymakers, our funders? And I got some good ideas how to persuade. Don't lose mind about persuading them. Maybe we got to see how fluctuations of weather regimes will do. So it seems to me that we have proven in this meeting and many other meetings, there's a lot of predictability in the system. and we can actually give useful information to society. But we are basically dealing with absolutely lousy models. And I think that this is something that we really have to challenge.
So we're at 10:30. I give the panel a chance to react to Shukla. We have 3 other people with remarks, so if everybody is okay, we're going to run about 10 minutes into the break. And so please, reactions to Shukla. Anybody?
I would have liked to give Shukla the last word.
Yeah, whatever. Go ahead.
This part follows from the last part of what Shukla said. I guess I find it very concerning that we are not allowed to entertain or even celebrate wrong answers in model development process. I mean, in institutions, of course, there are several versions of the model that one has to go through before you present the most beautiful one that you've created. But what about the intermediate solutions? We never get a chance to discuss them outside of the institutions. And this is where I would like to recall one of the elements that the NRC panel on advancing U.S. climate modeling proposed in the 2012 report, the idea of climate forum, and there are many ideas concerning a national forum like that, but one of the ideas was indeed to really discuss how model development goes on. And frequently you go to meetings and you just see the ultimate result. Very nice, simulation of seasonal cycle, temperatures, precipitation, winds. But really what kind of went on? We never hear about it. Or it's very, it's considered not too much of a use of good use of time to discuss those things. And I think it'd be fruitful in trying to accelerate progress by actually discussing some of those things in some kind of forums, national forums. And I think this would also be an encouragement to some of the newer people coming into the scene in climate model development. The other aspect related to this somewhat is the use of observations in the diagnostic evaluation of models. I think, yes, there is a lot of model observation comparison, but frequently it's not really wholesome. I mean, even within the atmospheric discipline, you'll find some observations being extensively used and some others not. And I don't think it has to do entirely with the quality of the observation necessarily. So how well are we using the observations in trying to develop the models? And a lot of times, of course, you end up constrained by tuning to Earth's radiation budget. But can we do a more wholesome job where even the bits and pieces that are important for the coupled model is actually being looked at in a careful sense? I would suggest that is an important aspect which actually then leads people, especially the early career people, younger people, to be challenged and to get excited by the field. I think we kind of are not giving them that excitement. Well, one of the observations maybe is that, in at least the climate models, at least the DEX-7 kind of models, the models actually came first, and then were compared with observations of temperature change. Now, of course, we have the observation in front of us, and we just try to match it. Victoria's century surface temperature change. Every model, if it is going to be called a reasonable model, it tries to simulate 20th century temperature, and so then it's just a circular argument that you're using observations to develop a good model, but then we don't ask enough questions about what should be the metrics of the model and how to evaluate it.
Any reaction? Ms. Angeli?
Yeah, George Philander encouraged us to kind of think about what's happening outside the room. And so I was thinking about the last 2 cycles for the geosciences budget at National Science Foundation last year. The President's request had an increase of about 4 or 5% for NSF, but there was 0.1% for geosciences. But in the end, when all the dust settled down, there was House and Senate had a 120 million increase for NSF, but there was language that said none of that increase should go for geosciences or social behavioral and economic sciences. So we had a flat budget. This year, in the President's budget, which is now being discussed on the Hill, there was an increase in the budget, about 4.7% for geosciences. But again, there's been language in the America Competes Act. The first act is being competed. If those of you who've been reading science, and Jeffrey Mills has been reporting on it, again, SVE and geosciences are excluded from getting any increases, so there's going to be a cap even in the Compete Acts. These two directorates are outside of what's going to be on the doubling track. The Competes Act was intended initially to be the budget's doubling for NSF, DOE, Office of Science, and NIST. So I just wanted to temper our expectations of a huge enterprise. In addition, in OCE, those of you who've been following, we had a decadal survey that the NRC did, because what they discovered was their facilities, like the International Ocean Drilling Program that has been giving us the paleo proxies, that was being funded at about 50 million a year. And then we had Ocean Observatories Initiative, a big, huge MREFC, etc. So these three, and one more, I think, the Alvin submersibles. In any case, 60% of the budget in OCE was being spent on facilities and 40% was on the science program. So we were getting to a tipping point. So the NRC had a decadal study, and they came up with some pretty hard recommendations that the Ocean Sciences Division will now be self-examining to kind of cut back on the facilities and make it 50-50. So all these conversations are happening outside the room. Geosciences is being perceived as not being adding to the economy and jobs, etc. I know Shukla is an optimist, and I hope I'm being a realist here, not being a pessimist.
So I'm going to invite reaction, but I also have reaction. That reaction is outrage. This is the U.S. government, our legislature in particular, making decisions about what the best science is. And in particular, deciding in advance that the geosciences, by virtue of some perception that we're not contributing to jobs, is not worth investing in. So, and at the same time, many of us in the room who are educators have PhD students who are about to graduate or will be graduating over the next couple of years into a job market which, by definition, must be shrinking. So if there's any reason for us to be having further discussions about it, it probably has to be about precisely that point. That are we going to be realists, like Angela is suggesting, and just take it and say, okay, all you graduate students in the room, I hope you know how to flip burgers. Or are we going to say, that's just ridiculous, geoscience is a critical part of our science enterprise? Mark, do you have a reaction?
Okay. Well, first of all, at least our graduates who don't go into the sciences usually go to Wall Street instead of flipping burgers.
That's worse!
It may be morally inferior, but it's not. It's certainly not financially worse. I only wish they would. Well, maybe they'll come back and pay for us. I think, though, there's a more important point rather than expressing outrage is. First of all of you who are associated with universities, your universities have government relations offices. Okay, this is what before I learned better I used to call a lobbyist. And these people need, I mean, obviously I don't think this is about jobs and lack of job stimulus from geoscience or social science. It's about a political agenda. For the social sciences, well, they're all liberals, so the hell with them. And for earth sciences, obviously, it's tainted by believers in climate change. So I think the first thing is that somehow the all of these government relations people really do have to be mobilized, because there are a lot of people in Congress who have more sense than that. And also we have these professional organizations, or plus UCAR, who also do this kind of government relations work. And the geoscience one seems particularly absurd because geoscience is such a broad swath. This also includes all of those people who go on to work for fossil fuel companies and other mineral extraction companies and all those things which, you know, as good environmentalists we don't approve of, but nonetheless, it means that there are these earth science related companies out there which also have a stake in seeing that geosciences is well funded. And, you know, on the same measure, it's true there are a lot of congressmen who think that AccuWeather can predict the weather without the National Weather Service, but AccuWeather people actually know this is not the case. And so they can be mobilized as well. So I think perhaps we shouldn't just, it's good to feel outrage, makes you feel better, but I think there's something here that really does need to be done. And we, as I say, I mean, we do have these government relations offices, and they need to be mobilized.
Well, I have a comment on the training, and by the way, I'm sure there will be very educated burgers when they will be given away. I wanted to make a comment of education, but Shukla said such interesting thing that I will reserve to comment on that when I will talk later. But going back to education, I think that one thing we have learned in the past few years is how climate and weather are pervasive everywhere. I mean, the list of the impact sectors is endless, is everywhere. But this situation is not reflected in the training, not in our training, because I agree with Lisa that the hope of creating polymath that will actually know everything about that needs to be known about climate may be an illusion. But the question is, there is not enough weather and climate in the other people training. If I look at the curricula, for instance, of biology in Italy, they have compulsory mathematics and physics courses. There should have a climate course. So I think we should try to make an effort to transition our training from a specialistic training to a basic training for all these sectors. And I think we can do things. First, we'll widen our jobs base. And the second thing is that we'll make a step forward the capacity of creating interdisciplinary teams, because people will have the necessary knowledge to at least talk to each other. So I think that the way we look at training is that we should look more at other discipline training rather than strictly ours.
Thank you. Any last words, last reactions, last comments? Yes, George.
Yeah, I'd recommend everybody read a paper called The Tragedy of the Commons. And the main point of that paper is that there are problems that cannot be solved strictly by scientific methods. And I submit global warming is one of them.
Anyone else? Great. Well, fascinating, stimulating, a little bit provocative, a little bit of fun. I'd like to thank everyone who participated, thank our panelists especially. So we have a coffee break. Normally we're supposed to reconvene at 11. Let's shoot for 11:05, and please try to be back to